Having Trump as president is a highly positive change for Bitcoin. In 2030, you're going to have to make a choice, and the population is going to have to choose between a CBDC, which has a plethora of privacy concerns, freedom issues, slave to the state problems, or a decentralized version of that, which is Bitcoin. I don't think people can sit out of this choice. It's going to have to be one or the other, and I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin is going to win. We're on the right side of history. We may be the next Bitcoin, and we may have an even bigger return. Then you spend time researching Bitcoin, and you understand it doesn't matter because it was the first. And it's going to be the last. It's the only true intrinsic valuable cryptocurrency there is. Fiat, which is government money, is basically the money of war. Bitcoin at the end of the day is the best tool that we have, and I would certainly be worried for humanity if it were to fail. We're going to pay some of our $35 trillion debt by holding Bitcoin. The objective with Bitcoin is to become a faster form of money, and that means that the throughput has to increase.
What are your first thoughts about the election?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, first thoughts, Bitcoin for the win. Hearing that Trump might have a reserve for Bitcoin specifically is a really exciting prospect. It's the first Bitcoin elected president. So yeah, let's see what happens over the next few months.
What do you think is the impact of that actually now for Bitcoin? We already heard a lot of like, okay, this will happen, and now it's actually here. Now Trump is actually president, and that by also a lot. Like it was not close in the end, as I saw it. How big is that for Bitcoin, or does it just impact short-term price volatility?
Yeah, it remains to be seen. There's this debate, I think, that I've been having with some Bitcoin friends for a while now, which is to say, would this movement where we have a president that is pro-Bitcoin, that would inevitably lead to more people becoming more aware about Bitcoin because the price increases, would that actually help long term? Or would something, which doesn't sound particularly good, but would something like the further degradation of society actually help accelerate adoption? So, it's a toss-up. Obviously, I would prefer the former. I would like to maintain a reasonable quality of life. I want the people I love to be safe, all these things. But yes, I think that in the short term, having Trump as president is a highly positive change for Bitcoin, for sure.
And I think whether debate, like if there's like a clear candidate that is better for the country versus a clear candidate that is worse for the country, I think we want a candidate that is better for the country. Like I have no clue about US politics, so I don't even want to do the judgment who's better. But if we assume Trump is way better for the country, this is the thing that I hear from all my Bitcoiner American friends, then we want him because both will print money.
Yeah, he added, what was it, 7 trillion to the debt when he was in office. So, regardless on whichever candidate you choose at the end of the day, the state is going to continue to print money and it's going to be a debasement of our currency. But in, like I said, the short term, it's great to see this price action. I do think that one of the most positive things that could potentially come out of this change in leadership is RFK and what he's going to be doing to America as a whole. This guy he was the one I wanted at the end of the day. But we get him through proxy essentially, because he's going to be put in charge of all these health agencies and trying to fix the chronic disease in America. One of the things that he says is when his uncle was president, so JFK, when he was president, chronic disease in America was 6%, and now it's 60%. So we have to do some drastic changes around just general health, food qualities, all these things. And I think that mission is definitely something that a lot of Bitcoiners have got behind. So that's what brought me along for the ride with Trump, I would say, is the strong indication that they're going to fix the chronic disease. They are going to hopefully break apart the state, with Musk saying that he's going to cut the number of government employees by 75%. I mean, these things are potentially life-changing and drastic.
Absolutely. It could make America extremely attractive again, like to move there, to be there. And you also moved from UK to Texas, if I understood that correct.
I did. Yeah. The things going on in the UK around 2020 was not that great. That was to come through to my orange pill story. It was probably the point that I reached when I lost faith in the state. I mean, that's the simplest way to say it. You know, before then, I had faith that the government was doing things in my best interest, and that they were telling us the truth. The media was behind, telling to be providing truthful information, which all of that is definitely false now. You know, and I made the tough call to come over here. It was going to be Florida or Texas at the end of the day, and Texas is where the guns are, it's where the freedom is, and it's Bitcoin City, it's Bitcoin Central. You know.
Amazing. How did this change of environment, this change of a completely different environment all of a sudden change your perspective on freedom? Did it further enhance something, or like how did you look at that?
I think I've always been a bit of a combative personality, I would say, to authority. You know, in school, teachers used to hate me. I don't know. I'm just very anti-authority, and before coming to the umbrella term of libertarian, which is what I am, I didn't really know how to place myself politically. And 2020 was that breaking point when I realized I am a libertarian. I think freedom, privacy, above all else, at the end of the day, you know, and America, it still stands as a testament to the best of humanity when it comes to anti-establishment, anti-totalitarianism, and it is an experiment at the end of the day, you know, democracy, what we're doing here, and I hope that we're going to see it through and we're going to see a rebuild. But yes, I think for me, moving here was a protest around the things that were happening in the UK due to COVID-19, which at the end of the day was, yes, in some ways horrible unanimously for humanity. You know, a lot of people did die, but they were we won't have to go into that, but the freedoms that were taken away alongside of the health actions were terrible to see, in my opinion.
And I think in 2020, a lot of people changed something in their lives. Like when I talk with people and it comes to either they moved or they got into Bitcoin, both the events for a lot of people that happened in 2020 or around that time, like a year later, half a year later, some are also a little bit before that, but usually it's like around that COVID area, which is really interesting. Last thing on the election that I want to cover is the nation state game theory, which is super interesting for me. Like we have those BRICS countries, we have the Eurozone, then we have America, and America is now probably the first major country that actually puts Bitcoin as the defined strategic reserve on there, which could be something really drastically changing. How impactful do you think is that?
Yeah, it's actually a shame to see the adoption still not being at the stage where we're viewing multiple countries, you know, adopting Bitcoin as their reserve currency. It's a good sign to see El Salvador breaking the barrier, you know, and I think recently we saw Argentina's vice president meeting with El Salvador's president, Bukele, and that is a really good sign because that could potentially pave the way for more countries to adopt Bitcoin. So the conversations, I'm sure, are happening. And now that we have Trump in the White House, you can't really avoid the conversation anymore. You know, and I think I always come back to this debate and this point with people I know, which is the march to authoritarianism is going to happen. You know, and I think in 2030 or around then, we're going to have to make a choice, and the population is going to have to choose between a CBDC, so a central bank digital currency, which has a plethora of privacy concerns, freedom issues, slave to the state problems, or a decentralized version of that, which is Bitcoin. You know, and I don't think people can sit out of this choice. It's going to have to be one or the other, and I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin's going to win. We're on the right side of history, but it may mean that we're going to have to see a little bit of society crumbling in the meantime.
Is there any situation where you was where we could imagine that Bitcoin isn't winning and CBDCs and that kind of future? I mean, it's scary, but do you think that is even possible?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know at the end of the day. I mean, there are sort of three main possibilities. One is that Bitcoin fails. I don't think it's likely. I think if it was going to fail, it would have done already. But that's a possibility, even if it's slim. Two is that the dollar still remains the reserve currency of the world, and we see really Bitcoin as more of like a settlement layer and a more of a savings technology that people choose to store their time and energy in. And then 3 is what I'm hopeful for, is that it actually, Bitcoin becomes the reserve currency of the world and it swallows up all other assets. And this is game changing for humanity, I would say. But yeah, who really knows? At the end of the day, builders in this space, all we can do is just really look ahead, a few years ahead, and just hope that we're going to build some further exciting things on Bitcoin. Lightning is great. There's developments there to be made. I still don't think we're quite ready for mass adoption there. Yes, we've increased throughput and payments. The number of payments throughput has increased, but it still fails quite a few times. I don't know what your experience with Lightning is like, but behind the scenes, I think it fails a whole bunch of times, like double figures before it actually succeeds a payment. So we're still early there.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that it's that high. That's like so big, but yeah. My experience with Lightning, I don't use it too much. Like I have here and there some event where we can pay with Bitcoin or something like that, but that's quite rare. That's like maybe once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. If I'm on a Bitcoin conference, then it's like at the conference a lot of times, like you buy for coffee or something like that. But it's really rarely. And there, I just use Wallet of Satoshi. I might get some hate for that, but it just works. Like it's not self custody, but I have maybe 50 euros on there, maybe 100 euros on there. If they steal my wallet, it's okay for me. I don't care about that too much.
Yeah, I have no bad blood with Wallet of Satoshi. That was the first Lightning wallet that I used. We can't use it anymore in America. It's banned, so you can't even download it from the app stores, which is frustrating. But we need more of these tools. I think that there is no better justification for Bitcoin and no better way to orange pill someone or sell someone on Bitcoin than actually loading up a Lightning wallet, taking them by the hand to a restaurant that accepts Bitcoin payments and scanning a Lightning invoice and watching them see as their eyes light up that a payment has gone through in this currency that is apparently magic internet money. So yeah, that was, we have a few places in Austin here where I live that accept Bitcoin. And yeah, it feels pretty nice to actually transact with Bitcoin in hand and buy a pizza, for example. It's really cool.
It's an amazing feeling. I love it a lot. We also have that in Vienna. That's an interesting question, though. When we look at like the main phase that we are currently in is the store of value phase, and most people adopt it because they want to store their wealth in Bitcoin. How important overall is that medium of exchange side of things? I mean, for like the price appreciation, my theory always was we only need the store of value side of things because you don't even want to you don't even want that Bitcoin is moving too much. If it stays in one place, it's actually better for the price. But I had Larry Lepard on the show, and there were some other people that said the same thing to me. Is like the medium of exchange story is super important for the adoption of Bitcoin. How do you see that?
Yes, and I think it's the entry point, as people see their currency debasing and they see inflation at record highs, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford a house. You need somewhere to park your savings because at the end of the day, money is just your time and energy. It's a way to redeem goods and services in the future. And so because money printing essentially devalues your currency over time, it leaks value. You need a way to securely store money. And that's really, I would say, the primary value for me with Bitcoin is a way for me to park my time and energy. But yes, I think once we reach mass adoption, I would say that we're at an interesting point in history now where we've sort of migrated away from the early adopters, the pioneers, who are maybe the cypherpunks, the crypto evangelists, and we're sort of slowly coming up on that bell curve of adoption. And it's becoming a little steeper. And now the challenge really for Bitcoin exchanges and other companies is to educate people, the mass public, on what Bitcoin actually is and how it's valuable. the strategy that is no longer in play is you can't just throw people in front of a smash buy button and just hope they're going to purchase, because it's not really going to be the case anymore. So you saw that with Swan. They launched their free 1 hour Bitcoin 101 course online. You have Cash App, who launched Bread, which is a written with graphics and textbook on Bitcoin education. So you're starting to see these big exchanges actually moving to more of a strategy of education. And that's really where I think that the value is for the future. That's what Jippy is going to be about too. We want to educate the masses because, the switch that's going to be valuable for humanity is to realize that Bitcoin isn't just a store of value, but it actually is money, and you can transact with it. So that's going to be an interesting switch when people realize they can actually buy stuff with Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned it as a question that I should have already asked earlier. What are you doing and what is Gypsy?
Yeah. So Gyppy is, it's the world's first Pokemon Go inspired Bitcoin education game. So we're building Bitcoin education for the masses, and that happens to be through the lens of Pokemon Go. We're really excited. We launched our MVP earlier in the year, and that really just brought in structured education. So we have islands of tiered education about Bitcoin combined with sats. So once you actually progress through our courses, we'll reward you with Bitcoin through Lightning. The next phase of this, which is phase 2, will be to build the game. And we actually launched our crowdfunding campaign a couple of weeks ago. So this is really exciting for us. This will enable us to build the game. And the campaign is on timestamp. So if you go to invest.timestampfinancial.com, you can have a look there. But yeah, the objective here is to make the most accessible, simplest, friendly on-ramp into Bitcoin for beginners.
I love the aspect of gamifying education, like making education as easily accessible as possible. And it's also, I think we just need as many doors into Bitcoin as possible. Like we need the games, we need the books, we need the podcast, we need everything that you can educate yourself with, and the more ways we have for people to come to the same conclusion, the better it is in the end of the day. So I like what you're doing there.
Thank you, brother. It's early days for us still, but I'm excited about the prospects of building this thing, and I think it's needed, especially if we're trying to get the younger generations, so younger millennials and Gen Z to actually understand Bitcoin. Their attention span's pretty bad. It's about 8 seconds these days. So you have to really target the offering of Bitcoin to these candidates. And I think that Pokemon Go is such a universally accepted and successful model that we want to move that into the Bitcoin space through Jippy.
I think it's when we look at generations, it's really funny because when it first came into Bitcoin, like on a local meetup from the online world, I thought the Bitcoin demographic is younger. I thought like, oh yeah, like 25, maybe 30 years old, something like that. But they actually the average age for my YouTube channel is like 45 to 50 actually. And I have 3 times as many people above 65 than under 25. Under 25, I basically have almost nobody. And under 18, I actually have like 0 point something %. So like the audience is extremely, I don't want to say old, but it's like extremely mature. And I thought it's the other way around. So that it seems like Bitcoin only is speaking more to more mature people, and the crypto community and the meme coins. This is where a lot of the younger crowd is, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're very right about that fact. The problem, obviously, is that the siren call of shitcoins is alluring. I first heard about the space all the way back in 2015. This was before I was fully orange pilled in 2020. And even at that time, I was sort of trying to understand, well, what is Bitcoin versus Ethereum? The gold to Bitcoin silver, and included the thousands and thousands of shitcoins out there. And it is alluring, to see like, oh, we may be the next Bitcoin and we may have an even bigger return. then you spend time researching Bitcoin and you understand it doesn't matter because it was the first and it's going to be the last. It's the only true intrinsic cryptocurrency, valuable cryptocurrency there is. It's the only one that has value over time. And so we're going to see that. But to try and educate the next generation about that is a problem because it's so alluring with all these games, these crypto casinos. They look good, they're flashing lights, they're enjoyable to play with. So that's really going to be the biggest value for Jippy, I think, is to try and bring some of that gamification to make it fun and engaging without any of the shitcoinery, because we're not about that, So we want to make it fun and entertaining, but only Bitcoin.
It's and stupid argument that I hear all the time is, oh no, like what do I do with Bitcoin? It's just 2xing per year. I need like the 10x because I don't have money. It's like that argument of like, I don't have money, so I need to put my little amount that I have in like some casino type of investment so I can maybe outgrow. Like I hear that argument mostly on TikTok. And mostly on short form content. So like on the long form YouTube video, I never heard that argument. But it's also interesting how you have different arguments and, depending on what format of content you have, even though it's the same content, but like differently cut. So that's something that is like, no, like, okay, yeah, you can gamble, you can go into casino, maybe you have a lucky day, but most likely you lose. Otherwise the casino would not be there. And the same with the meme coin. It's like a zero-sum game, and the people that invent the coin usually win, and the people that invest in it usually lose.
100%. There's a reason why Vegas looks like Vegas. Glittering buildings, flashing lights, beautiful people, beautiful places, is because they have all the money, and it's basically a grand larceny, a big old theft from people who are willing to part with their hard-earned money. So yeah, I think that the model with Jippy is going to be very important, and it would look something like this. We would educate a whole bunch of folks in the ways of Bitcoin, from beginner to intermediate to master. So you sort of have a structured pathway to send people through, and whilst they earn sats for their time. Then we introduce them to Tribe Clash, which is Pokemon Go for Bitcoin. And the model here is we would have 21 real world territories in your city, and you would join a tribe of Bitcoiners with your friends. And the objective here is to compete to claim territories. So we would release one new territory each week for someone in your tribe to claim, and they need to be boots on the ground in that territory. And they claim it by answering a quiz question about Bitcoin. So if you answer the question correctly the fastest, whilst you're competing with other people, other tribe members, you're then able to claim a Bitcoin beast. And this beast will be themed in some aspect of Bitcoin, like Nakamoto Nick, Blockchain Bob, Sat Sarah. So there's education there too. The only way for you to catch the beast, obviously, is to know about Bitcoin. So that's where the education element as well comes in. The most amazing, valuable aspect, I think, here, apart from those two things, is the winning tribe will then win half a Bitcoin. So there is a high ticket value item for you to compete and learn and actually earn too. So that's really the magic, I think, that we're going to be building over the next few months.
I like it. I think it has the potential to grab attention from a different crowd. I hope so too, at least.
Me too. Yeah, me too. It's been hard to raise money in the bear market for sure. But with this new all-time high, it seems like we're going to be rallying around a potential 100K price, which would be fantastic. And hopefully that would mean that there's more money flowing into the space, because us Bitcoin builders do need a little bit of support now and again. We don't have all of the wonderful shitcoin money that comes in from having a shitcoin casino. So we're really relying on building value that actually furthers Bitcoin. It just means that it's harder to find a revenue stream. We think this could be it for us.
How is that raising money in Bitcoin? Because Bitcoiners who have a lot of Bitcoin, they have their own Bitcoin reserve, and they measure an investment against that reserve, and it's pretty hard to compete with a 2x return every year. It's like it has to be a really valuable and great idea where someone goes ahead and like, yeah, I will take out money from Bitcoin and I will give you that because I think you will beat Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're going through that process right now. It's been a slog already throughout the beginning of the year. We only launched a couple, 2, 3 months ago, so we're still quite fresh. And so this process of fundraising is really raw and new for us. And that's why I think we've gone down the route with timestamp and crowdfunding, is because you need Bitcoiners to buy into the vision of what this product is going to be. And I personally think that it's going to add a lot of value to the space. I think that we could become the largest, most popular on-ramp into Bitcoin for beginners if we get this right. And so, yeah, we just need to start these conversations. And we're currently around 50K invested, which is a good start. We're looking to raise to a maximum of 250K. It's hard. It's a challenge. You know, people don't want to part with their Bitcoin at the end of the day. So unless they see a really, really strong vision, and that's my job as CEO of Jippy, is to try and communicate that vision effectively.
It's super interesting. What do you think, as you have now you kind of live through that in that small window right now? But what do you imagine when we have only Bitcoin and like this vision of Bitcoin is kind of fulfilled? How different do you think will starting a startup, the venture capital space, how different will be that space?
That's a very good question. People will hold on to their value, their money more closely. I'm sure you can't have a society that prints away value anymore, and you can't have a what is essentially fiat, which is government money, is basically the money of war. You know, you can't print money for war anymore and debase the currency. So I think people will closely hold money to their chest, but it remains to be seen at the end of the day. We're all speculating. This is a first territory for us. But we could probably assume, hopefully, a few thousand years of peace. I mean, you know, when under a gold standard, society saw such prosperity and growth, and some of the most amazing innovations for humanity was during that time. So we might see another revolution during the Bitcoin hyper-Bitcoinization phase, which we're all hoping for at the end of the day. We're getting close, but there may still be a few decades out.
And the crazy thing is, we don't only have Bitcoin, like we have the internet, we have the globalization, we have the digitalization on top of that, which makes transfer of information way more effective than compared to the gold ages where we only had gold, where it was hard to communicate from America to the UK, to Austria, to Australia. Now it's super easy. Now the whole world is connected. I partner up with American companies. I connect with guests all over the world. It's like there's no friction. You just like choose your place where you stay on that world, where you are treated best, where your Bitcoin are treated best, and then you can connect with the whole world. I think that could actually usher in like a golden age, like an actual golden age for prosperity.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, fiat is an experiment. Prior to 1913, which is when the early stages of coming off of the gold standard started to show itself. And I can go into that in a second because it's really interesting. We enter into that information into Jippy. But yeah, before that point, you know, we've had humanity using gold as money for thousands of years, and having scarce money is important because you can't debase it, you can't create more of it. You need scarce money so that it maintains its value through time, and Bitcoin is the scarcest money known to man. So prior to 1913, we had good money, we had sound money, and after 1913, that's arguably when we could start to see the degradation of society accelerate. And I don't know how many people know this. I mean, it's definitely interesting. But so World War I, which was 1914, so it's actually my brethren, so the British government, that can be thanked for destroying money, because the government tried to raise £350 million, and they tried to do that through issuing war loans. The issue is that nobody wanted to join the war in the UK. No one wanted to finance the war. And so they only actually managed to raise 91.1 million. So they were actually hugely undersubscribed. So what did they do? What did the government do? Well, with the Bank of England, which is a central bank in the UK, they couldn't raise the money to finance the war. It was a massive failure. So what did they do? Well, the Bank of England decided to create the money out of thin air and purchase the war bonds as an IOU. And that's how we can see the debt-based money today. It's literally just printing money out of thin air to finance wars and ridiculous expenditure.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece, and make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure. It's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty. This is super interesting that it started like that, and now we kind of have to close the loop to like what impact does it has for wars when all of a sudden the people that live in that jurisdiction that wants to have war actually have to vote with their money to have war. Because if there's no war and there's normal taxes and there's no way to print money, you use that money to build roads, to build whatever, and you have your normal tax rate. Then the government has to come to all the citizens and says, hey, I want to raise your taxes by, I don't know, 100%, 50%, 200%, whatever, depends on what war they're planning on. To raise the money, or with loans, or with whatever instrument they want to do that. What if this is not there anymore? That just ends those like useless wars, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It could shepherd in an amazing, prosperous time for humanity that should hopefully last for thousands of years, well, hundreds or thousands of years. So we'll see. Bitcoin at the end of the day is the best tool that we have, and I would certainly be worried for humanity if it were to fail. I don't think that we have any other weapon that's non-violent that can be used to defang the state. We do have the guns here. That's kind of nice, but at the end of the day, you can't always go around shooting your way out of problems. There are other solutions, and monetarily, Bitcoin is the biggest tool we have.
Absolutely. What do you think is the biggest challenge towards that future? What is the biggest challenge for Bitcoin that we might face in the next years?
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen what the next 4 years are going to look like, and if Trump actually follows through with the Bitcoin reserve, because that would be a huge value proposition for the public to actually notice that we're going to pay some of our $35 trillion debt by holding Bitcoin. And so we see that debt increase until Bitcoin is used to pay that debt. And so that could be a really solid indication that it's here to stay, at least in the zeitgeist, the public's mind, that Bitcoin is here to stay. But we don't know. Even if Trump doesn't do that, Bitcoin will succeed, in my opinion, but it will potentially be a fight. So let's say we have 4 years of him and then we get some insane flip that sometimes happens. You get blue and then red and then blue and then red. It's a seesaw-like effect with American politics. And the next candidate is very anti-Bitcoin and they're very pro-CBDC. That could also actually have a net positive effect on Bitcoin because people are noticing that money now has all of the strings attached. You can't use cash anymore. We're a cashless economy. Your centralized digital currency is tied to your credit score. So now you can't buy things if you are saying bad things about the government. So it starts to get a little bit hairy, scary there, I think, in my opinion. But either way, no matter what happens with those two outcomes, I think that Bitcoin will just continue to eat the world.
It's super interesting with CBDCs, as in America, they are extremely against CBDCs. And also the government is like kind of on this train of like, let's fight against it and let's make sure it's not happening. In Europe, it's kind of the other way around, where the central bank and the EU is really fighting for that and steamrolling ahead on this topic, which kind of is like, maybe I should not be here. I don't know if they actually do that. And I think game theory will be very interesting, seeing the next 5 years of Bitcoin and CBDCs across the world.
It will. And if you get scared, come join us in Texas. We would love to have you. The more the merrier.
Absolutely. I mean, that's actually a thing of mine, because I have a private group and stuff like that. So like people actually join there, and there are mostly Americans in there. And then there are also a lot of like friendships just built over time with a YouTube channel and with the connections. And I have now already so many connections in America, and 50% of my audience is in the USA. So like USA is like a huge audience base. And then there's like Canada, there's UK, there's all the other places where people speak English, as my podcast is English speaking. Austria, where I'm from, there's like 0.3% of the audience, something like that.
Small.
Very, very small, obviously, because we have a lot of good German content also. But yeah, like it's not out of the question that at some point I might live not in Austria, but maybe in America, maybe somewhere else. I don't know. But the incentive has to be really good for that. Either the incentive to go there, as a pull factor, or the push factor away from the EU. Let's see. I'm quite hopeful actually for the EU, because when you saw the latest elections across all the countries there, it seems like the EU critical parties, the parties that actually say like, oh, that's not as good, that we have so much control from the EU with the Digital Service Act, that we have the CBDCs and stuff like that. Those parties actually were the election winners in most countries over the last few months and year. So there's like a small hope for me. But yeah, if they do something that I really don't like, I have Bitcoin, I can move wherever I want. So that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, that's encouraging. And it's good to see some swings to the right in Europe for sure. I think the UK is still having problems. We just elected a Labour government, so uber crazy liberal in the UK. And it remains to be seen what their policies are going to be around CBDCs and how strongly they're going to push those. Because at the end of the day, they're all just puppets, be it the conservative government or the liberal government. They're all just puppets paid by the central banks and the establishment. So it definitely worries me. I think we saw some really pretty crazy things in 2020. I really do think that they were trying to push social credit score and CBDCs with the COVID, the tracking app and all that stuff. You had to show QR codes and all the medical information that you had to provide before entering a business. So I think that they were trying to push it as a test. Fortunately, it failed, and we pushed back as a population. But it's not going to stop them from trying again, So I think my biggest advice to any folks who are thinking about their freedoms and their liberties is try and think of an exit strategy and think about where you would want to go. America is the last holdout, in my opinion, for freedom and liberties. That's why we have, First Amendment, Second Amendment, etc. We're protected to some degree, not the same extent in Europe, I would say.
How do you look at countries like El Salvador or other places where freedom is a little bit higher, and but they are very small countries, so probably cannot protect themselves if actually something happened that's different with America because they have a lot of force also. How do you look at that?
Yeah, it's early for them. Obviously, I think that it's encouraging to see places like Bitcoin Beach evolving, and you have businesses accepting Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is actually legal tender there, so you can actually genuinely use Bitcoin for any purchase. It's really great, but it is early days, and I think that for what I'm hearing, boots on the ground there, it's still, it has a way to go to try to match the quality of life that we have here, you know, in America and other places. But it is a good holdout. You know, if America, for whatever reason, does fall, you do have these places. You have Mexico, you have El Salvador, you have places you can go to that would be a Bitcoin citadel for folks, because that's what you want at the end of the day. You know, you want a way to hedge against tyranny, and that is a citadel, and that means that you have Bitcoin at your fingertips, hopefully guns at your fingertips, something to protect yourself.
One thing that we discussed before a little bit is Lightning already, but you mentioned that there are some problems that you also see with that. Do you think that Lightning is the main thing that we will focus on, or is like, how do you see also the developments with? Oh.
Sorry, apparently they heard us talking, so that I'm being arrested now.
What was that? Was Microsoft talking with you?
Yeah, this is the fire alarm test.
Oh, there's a fire alarm test.
Yes, it's either that or the government's listening and they want to get rid of me, which is possible too. But I don't know how long this is going to last.
Are you in a public building, or is it like in your home?
I'm in my apartment. Yeah, I'm in an apartment in downtown Austin.
And you have those fire alarms.
Yeah, occasionally it goes through the whole building. We have mainline fire alarm systems, and so it can get pretty loud, honestly. Pretty loud. Hopefully it stopped now. Okay.
That's super interesting. I never saw that. Like, obviously we also have fire alarms, but it's, you have to test them yourself. Like, they're just like things that you put on there, and they're not connected to anything. They're just like making a lot of noise if they detect smoke. It's a smoke detector in the end of the day. So not really a fire alarm system. But I never saw anything like that. I saw it in public places, like in schools and stuff like that. They have more advanced systems, but it's like actually in your apartment where you have also a speaker where someone actually speaks with you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's mainlined into the building like a school or like a government building. There's literally a big old speaker on the wall, so it would blast out and it would be everywhere in the whole building if there was a fire, for example. So it's pretty crazy.
And who has the microphone for those speakers?
Yeah, I want to know that too myself. Someone in a dark room somewhere, probably below on the lower levels of the building, I would say.
Oh, but it's privately owned, not like the state is like saying fire alarm into the.
No, thankfully, no, that would not be accepted. No, it's a privately owned building, and we have, I'm assuming, some folks on staff that run all these systems. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, sorry for that.
Sorry, what was the question? That was my. I wasn't even given notice that this was going to happen today, so apologies about that.
I learned something new with it. I think that those are moments where we learn. Really cool. I asked about Lightning, how you see Lightning scale up, and Bitcoin in general scaling up, because we have almost no one, when you compare to the whole world, using Bitcoin now. How do you think it is when Bitcoin actually is used by 4 or 5 billion people?
Yeah. That is the objective at the end of the day, is for us to sort of maintain the same throughput as MasterCard, Visa. I think the objective with Bitcoin is to become a faster form of money, and that means that the throughput has to increase, because really what we're limited by now with Bitcoin is we're limited by block size. So the block size is about 4 megabytes, and what that means is per day we can have about 500,000 transactions that occur. That's rather limiting. That's a small percentage when you compare it to something like Visa. The Visa network is huge. So what's happened is we have this layer 2 technology called Lightning, which is a payments network on top of Bitcoin. And with that, basically, you can scale transactions much faster. So you can actually have about 1 million transactions per second, theoretically. So the throughput really increases. The problem, though, is that we're still in a position where some of these transactions are failing. Perhaps the lower scale, the lower number of transactions are failing. There was a study done by River, actually. So in 2018, River is one of the large Bitcoin exchanges. In 2018, Lightning payments were failing about half of the time, which is pretty high. I mean, you don't want that with money. You want your transaction to be final at the end of the day, and you don't want it to fail. Closer to 2022, it was successful about 98.7% of the time, according to River. So that shows there's improvement. But from what I've heard, we're still at the point where a transaction will fail multiple times before it succeeds. I don't know what that number is exactly. I'm not a Bitcoin developer, or a Lightning developer, but I know that it doesn't happen on the first try.
It's also interesting. I hear a lot that we need beyond Lightning something. Like Lightning is just the first step, and then we need like federations and we need other eCash systems and Fediment. Honestly, I always focus on the main layer, and I trust that there are a lot of smart people inside of Bitcoin that develop all those great apps. And till now, I see that happening. So how do you see that? Like, do you see that we have like then a lot of layer 2s or connected layer 3s or something like that?
Yeah, I'm the same as you when it comes to this. I'm a little bit further away from the main core development of Bitcoin or layer 2 networks. I trust there are some really amazing people working on some good solutions. So when it comes to Jippy's role, we do use Lightning. We have an integrated Jolts, which is a Lightning API. And so we get all of our rewards through them. They do all the custody and they run the Lightning nodes, which is quite nice. So we can offload some of that anxiety and the issues there. But yeah, I mean, this is the beginning. I mean, we're going to see an explosion in productivity tools with layer 2. I'm sure of it. And even you're seeing some of the social media side too with Nostr and things like that. So it's exciting to see. But I know that the thing that drives me every day is just seeing Bitcoin adoption grow. Layer 0, like layer 1, like that's my bread and butter, and trying to educate people on that.
That's the most important right now. I also think so. When we look at Nostr as you said, social media and Lightning, there's like Nostr. There are other apps that allow that. Nostr is a protocol for Primal and those apps. Do you think after we decentralize money, all the other things will kind of follow, or how do you see that development?
I think it would have to. We still have, to some degree, centralized information. Having Elon Musk buy Twitter probably saved us, saved societies. It definitely saved America and probably led to the outcome of this election, because to some degree we have decentralized information now through Twitter. Before old Twitter was co-opted by the state, by the central agencies, and by some left-wing lunatics. So it's good to see this evolving. But let's say there was a case where you get someone in government like the other candidate who is very anti-decentralization. There's a possibility where they would shut down Twitter. And that means that we would have to then jump to the next best alternative. So if that were to occur, you would probably see a bunch of people jumping to Nostr. The learning curve is still quite large, I would say. People still need to sort of understand what is public-private key pairs? How does that relate to an account? Because you don't really have an account with an email and a password anymore. So there's further education to be done in the space.
Absolutely, yeah. And I saw it firsthand for myself. I downloaded it and tried it like 1 year ago. And I gave up on it, and I was like, that's not ready for mass adoption. And for a social media platform, that's really important. Like for a social media platform that lives on a network effect, that lives from the people that are using that. And there is no financial incentive to do it. Like in Bitcoin, there's big financial incentives to be early in there. For a social media platform, it's not like when you are in early, you will gain massively from that. Maybe you gain an audience from that, but you constantly have to develop that. Bitcoin, you just like have to hold to financial gain from that. And now I got back on like 2-3 months ago, and it's in a massive, way better experience now. I use Primal. I tried a few of them, and Primal was for me the best looking and the best feeling. And it's growing fast, and it feels like Bitcoin in 2012, even though I was nowhere near Bitcoin in 2012. But it feels like that rawness, this earliness of that platform, and has a huge potential. I also feel like that.
Yeah, so exciting. And it is noticeable that things are improving. The UI and the UX of these apps are improving. Obviously, Web 2 has had decades of time to perfect how things look and how things work. That, I would say, is something I deeply care about as someone with a background in design and software engineering. Been a software engineer for about 5 years before that, design. So we at JP deeply care about how these tools are going to look and how they're going to be, hopefully, prioritized around the UI UX. So someone who is a beginner should ideally not have to think. The cognitive load should not be too heavy on them to understand what these things do.
Absolutely. How important do you think is community for that? Like, how important is the community aspect in general of Bitcoin? Sometimes I feel like maybe it's bad, even like it's a bad feature because we are so tribalistic about everything. How do you look at that?
I think it's very important, especially from the funding side. Like I mentioned with Bitcoin, the monetization is different. These tools are usually open source, which means that there isn't the same level of success, monetary success, that you would see if you were making a shitcoin, for example. We don't have tokens that we're floating around. We're not scamming people out of money. This is actually tools. This is tools that would better humanity, and that generally means it's open source, which means anyone can download it and copy the code, which means there's no money in it. So to build on these layer 2 networks, you need a way to monetize. And so thankfully, the network has the support of people like HRF, so Human Rights Foundation, and OpenSats. And these are institutions that provide grants and resources to developers who want to build on these things. And so that is really the power of community. Hopefully, we'll see even more money flowing into the space. I know that some of these big Bitcoin companies like Unchained, for example, they just do amazing things for the community. Here in Austin, we have Bitcoin Commons, which is a co-working space for Bitcoiners. There's some Bitcoin companies there. We have PlebLab, and Jippy is on the current PlebLab Accelerator program, and they do amazing things for the community as well. So we are in this together. Bitcoin is a group project, I would say.
Very nice, really cool. Perfect. Then let's come to the question that I asked every one of my guests. What can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that one. I would say that apart from Bitcoin, what drives me is this desire to understand the world, and this desire to understand why I'm here. I think so much truth has been lost to time. Tools like breathing and meditation and all these ancient tools that have helped humanity for thousands of years, they're slowly making a comeback with all this mindfulness stuff. Unfortunately, it's been a little co-opted by the left, I would say, but there's definitely some truth there. I meditate every day. I find it very, very important as a way to sort of ground my nervous system. And when I'm definitely in stress, I will do a breathing exercise that was inspired by Wim Hof. And this guy, this Iceman, is insane. I mean, he literally, just through breathing alone, is able to withstand things that the human body should not withstand, like climbing Mount Everest naked with no clothes, where any other man would die, or expelling a infection from his body with just breathing. And so this is a really strong tool, I think. It's quite weird. When you do the breathing exercise that he does, it's sort of like a hard reset for an iPhone, but for your body. And it's very peculiar. Your whole body will like vibrate. So I recommend looking into that stuff.
I tried it once. It's intense.
Yeah.
Like Wim Hof, he has a YouTube channel, and you can actually like breathe along and do his exercises. He's also a lot on podcasts. Like you can really like get deep in what he does. It's really cool to see so many great tools to navigate your life too. And I think Wim Hof does a great job in that. And he's a crazy person. I like those characters.
Me too, because you need them. You need them. The society is not the same as it was back then. We're all straight laced and quite, yeah. Society has just changed. So I think you need people on the outskirts to just sort of prod and push and just remind us that there's other stuff out there that we don't know. Hallucinogenics, all these things, DMT. I mean, I could spend countless hours researching this stuff and being very interested in it. Doesn't mean I want to take it. I've been told it's like fired through a cannon into a different universe. There's lots of mysteries out there, and it's just a reminder that the world is bigger than what's in front of us.
I'm currently reading the book "You Can't Hurt Me" from David Goggins. That's an amazing one. I don't know if anyone ever did it like that. I was like the audiobook version of it, and he did the audiobook, and after each chapter, he does a podcast kind of a style where the guy who actually wrote the book for him or with him interviews him to that chapter. And so it's very long. It's like 14 hours. So I'm halfway through. But that book is really good. Like David Goggins is one of those guys who definitely stretch the limits of what's possible with the human body. Do you know about him?
No. So what would be the big takeaway from the book so far, would you say?
That when you really want something, your body is capable of a lot more than you give him credit to. He is like a Navy SEALs, and he was like completely overweight, and he has this amazing story how he went from like lazy, overweight to being the top Navy SEALs. I think he holds the record for the most pull-ups in like 24 hours.
Wow.
Some crazy things like that. He's a real machine, and I can just like if you ever feel unmotivated or you begin to slow down in life, just listen to his story and you're like, oh shit, like I'm a pussy, I have to work. Like I don't do anything in my life. Like I really have to get going now. It's really motivating, this book, and it's fascinating stories. And I think especially valuable, I mean, it doesn't apply for me because I had an amazing childhood, but he had a really bad childhood, like really bad. So for anyone who has some kind of trauma or some kind of bad childhood, that is a book I think that helps you a lot. But yeah, that's just that's what I'm currently reading, and I do like it a lot because I'm one person that also quits books. Like if like halfway through or 25% in, like I don't like it, I'm like, yeah, let's throw it if it was not that good. But it's 14 hours long, and I'm like hour 7 or 8, and it keeps getting better. Like it's fascinating for me.
Wow, I'm gonna need to listen to that next. I'm a runner, so I tend to listen to podcasts and books on Audible and other things when I run. So that would be a really good thing for me to do.
Yeah,
I'm
Audible is
fascinated.
great.
Yeah, fascinated.
Absolutely, it's on. I also listen on it on Audible, and yeah, it's long. They have a lot of material.
But that sounds really cool.
Absolutely perfect. Then thank you so much. Before we have an end routine. I almost forgot the end routine today. Wow, would be the first time that I forgot the end routine, but I did not. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the question from the previous guest is: do you work in Bitcoin? Why or why not? I can already answer the first one. You work in Bitcoin, so I will ask you, why do you work in Bitcoin?
I think the answer is simple, is that this is my calling. I don't think that there is any bigger problem for humanity to solve than the problem of broken money. And we're seeing society falling apart, crumbling because of our corrupted monetary supply and because of the way that incentives are built around broken money, government, food, agriculture, war. It's all because of that. So if there's anything that I could point towards a mission that would help humanity, it would be making Bitcoin the global reserve currency. And that's hopefully I'll get to see that in my lifetime and say that I was a part of that process.
Amazing. I love to see it. Really, really cool. Perfect. Then thank you so much for being on. Before I let you go, Oliver, where can people find you, reach out to you, and ask you questions?
Yeah, thank you, Robin. So yes, I'm founder and CEO of Jippy. That's JIPPI, and you can find our website online at jippy.app. That's JIPPI.app. Also, we have, like I mentioned, our crowdfunding campaign that is open on timestamp, and that is timestampfinancial.com. I'm sure Robin will put that in the show notes so they can click on the link. But essentially, our crowdfunding is open to everybody, and that's folks who are accredited investors as well as the general public. Any contributions would help us greatly in our mission to build Pokemon Go for Bitcoin. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you taking the time. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.